Tertiary education in Nigeria, while aiming to contribute to national development through high-level manpower training, faces challenges in ensuring the curriculum's practicability and relevance to the nation's needs. Many graduates struggle with unemployment or underemployment due to a mismatch between the theoretical knowledge imparted and practical skills required by the job market. This is often attributed to outdated curricula, lack of practical experience, and inadequate focus on soft skills like critical thinking and problem solving. And to have this conversation on tertiary education curriculum and practicability in Nigeria's society, we have Honorable Divine Ekweremadu, who is a Special Advisor, Student Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Enugu State. We could go on and on. Good evening, Divine, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Glad to be back.
Of course, we are glad to have you. I promised that we're going to call you again so you could give us an insight on things like this. Looking at, this is something that we highlighted during our previous discussion, looking at the curriculum so far. You are in this, you're familiar with school, you know, you deal with students, and it says that you're a student affairs special advisor and so on and so forth. Well, how would you assess the Nigerian tertiary curricular scheme right now?
Well, so just to delve right, straight into it, the curriculum, the tertiary institution curriculum, it's not meant to, exist alone. So the educational curriculum is meant to be a compendium of the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary, right? That's the educational system we run. And so even if we correct tertiary educational curriculum and there is a problem with the secondary or the primary, there's still going to be lapses. So what I feel about the tertiary education, like we said the last time, is that we have courses which, may not even be relevant, and may need to be replaced, that when people graduate from those courses, they may really not find anywhere to, function, right, with that particular skill set that they have. And while this, exists in many places, even in the countries where we think things are working, there are also people who study courses and they don't practice it. But the curriculum is meant to be built in a way that when you get out of the school, you've also gained knowledge about other things that are not necessarily what you're studying at the time. And so, because a lot of times when you talk about curriculum, the attention is always on the courses we study, whether the textbooks that are being used. That's also an important part of curriculum. But I want to look at it from the point of view of how rich the educational system is, right? So when a person gets into the university, what is the spectrum of knowledge that the person is exposed to? Is the person now limited, which is what happens in Nigeria, from the primary to the secondary to the university? There is a limitation to say choose science or art. It happens to all of us in secondary school. So you choose science or art, but outside there, you find that there are things like robotics. So even in the secondary school, so there is robotics, there is data, analysis, data processing, and of course we did data processing, computer science, but it
wasn't the data processing aspect of it.
It wasn't. It was just running to the lab, and coming out, touching the computer and then clicking that we actually went to the problem with what we have at the tertiary educational level is the spectrum of exposure. If I am interested in business, is there a place, is there a caveat for me, even though that I cannot leverage on just business and I want to study this course? Is there a caveat for me to actually get experiential knowledge about business? If I'm interested in tech, how is the curriculum built to also accommodate those people? Because what happens is that every other knowledge, aside what you can get from your primary course of study, you have to get it outside the tertiary educational scheme. And that may represent a distraction, in the regular student's mind, in the average student's mind, that's a distraction. And then away from, what happens outside the course of study, there's also a problem with the level of practicability within the school, because we talk about practicability in the Nigerian society. Let's even talk about how practicable these courses are or these trainings happen within the university. Students who study courses like engineering, mechanical, electrical, how often do they have hands-on experience about what they are learning? Because I find out that we have the theoretical knowledge. Every time Nigerians, go out there, there's always a remark on how much theoretical knowledge we have. But when it comes to the hands-on experience, how much of it do we have? Yes, you know that there is an alternating current, as an electrical engineering student. You know that there are cables, you know about you can calculate all those things, you can really do the equation and all. But if you were presented with real-time gadgets and asked to build something, can you build it? And so this is where countries like China and Japan beat us, because if someone is studying electrical engineering, the person from their first year to their final year must have built a lot of things before they get out. So they have experience. And there's this funny thing that has been trending where people go for an interview and then you just come out of school and they say you should have 5 years experience of the course you just
some are more than 5 years.
Some are more than 5 years. And then this person that just came out is wondering where I would have gotten 5 years experience. Well, the truth is that if you were outside, you must have gotten those experiences. Yes, because there is an exposure. These universities partner with companies, with industries. They send off their students. They don't care about what happens in the classroom. They send off their students and say, you know what, every second semester in your university, from first year to final year, you're going to be visiting different industries, join their workforce.
An internship.
Yes, as a volunteer, either paid volunteering or unpaid volunteering. You're going there because you're going to be doing that thing you're learning. So every day, if you learn this today, you are practicing it today or tomorrow. And so these are 2 levels of analysis I've given. The fact that if I'm coming in to study medicine and surgery, personally, that's what I'm studying in the university. But if you listen to me speak, you know that I'm also into leadership, politics, business, tech, and the rest of them.
And that's because you're conscious about the conscious effort.
And everybody, most of the people around me see it as me stepping out of what I am studying in school. If there was a provision of those things, where I can pick up knowledge about those things within the system, then it wouldn't be a distraction. It wouldn't be extra work. It would be that the curriculum will also provide time. Okay, this guy is also interested in leadership. For students who are also interested in leadership, this is the time caveat for you guys to take on. So that's one level of analysis. And then the second, of course, is the practicability. If I'm studying medicine and surgery or any other course, that has to do with hands-on, practice, how much of a specialist am I by the time I graduate? Or am I going to join the story of, when you come out, you start afresh to learn? So there's this thing they say when you go to the hospital after being a medical doctor, you dump all those things that you were told in the school and then you start learning afresh, So, thankfully, it's not always like that. In some universities, there's intentional effort put into giving students clinical experience. But in some places, there isn't. And so it's all head knowledge until you get out to the real world. So somebody studying business management in the university but can't handle a business when they graduate. So it's just funny. I've heard jokes about if you're doing any business administration course, you're going to end up doing POS. Yes, but meanwhile, these are meant to be top analysts for big companies. You should be able to go into companies and work and become an analyst. You should become a global, analyst, talking about the economy of the country and all of that. But how much of that knowledge is practicable? So these are 2 levels. The spectrum of exposure within the university, not outside, right? And then the ones that are within, how much practice is done, or is it just head knowledge, right? So these are like the problems within the tertiary educational curriculum.
So the reason why Nigerian students after graduation lack employment, would you really blame it on the government, the institution, or a personal thing?
Well, why they lack employment has a lot of factors, but usually when I want to talk about issues like this, I always make it personal because, and I'll tell you why. It's because even where you say there is no employment, people go there and get employment. And so there is the government side where there are no jobs. And so let that not be an option. Because when you create that, when you say it's the fault of the government, so you keep encouraging people to expect that they will get jobs from the government. right? So I don't think anybody's knowledge, anybody's years in the universities can ever be valued well enough, within one government, job. I don't think so, honestly. However, when you now come to a general, or whether it's general or personal, I feel it's personal, because you walk into offices. For example, I wouldn't want to mention the name of this company, but I know a company that was teaching business, to some of my students in UNEC, and then they were telling them that they called for an interview, and they had 30 people who indicated. And when they said they should have an extra certification to have volunteered in something related to that course, only 2 people were able to apply. When they made that a prerequisite, only 2 people were able to apply. And
money is involved at this point.
Money is involved. But what I'm saying is that there are no qualifications. With the student community hold on tenaciously to what they are taught, in the university. Now, I'm not saying, we've already said that the blame is the nature of the curriculum, but how long can we blame? So there are people who are consciously, if you are an architect, by now, you're studying architecture, by now you should have made designs, you should have things in your case, you should have things you can bring out, whether they were works you did years back or not. So, but when students rely only on that knowledge, when they appear before the private sector, because the private sector is not like the government sector. The government sector, a lot of things play on for employability. There is Onyema, right? So in English, that means who you know.
Who you know.
There's also the place of paying money to get a job. There's also the place of genuinely just getting the job through an average certification. But the private sector guy wants to be the best. He has competitors. So he's not going to take you on just because you have a first class. By the way, we churn out a lot of first class graduates
students
in Nigeria. Across all the institutions, we have a lot of them. The Senate list for UNEC just dropped, and there were still hundreds of first class graduates from across 7 faculties, University of Nigeria campus. There are hundreds of them. The question now is, if I'm bringing you in as a first class graduate in my company that is interested in marketing, and you said you read marketing, and I tell you to now go on, please market this
product for me.
So how well can you market? Or you can write the values of marketing off your head, and you can pass an exam about the values of marketing, the principles of marketing. But can you do marketing? That is why you see people who didn't study marketing are becoming promoters. These people they call influencers. That's what they do. They are promoters. They market. They never studied it, but they can do it. And the company would rather take that guy than take you who has a first class, because it's head knowledge, not practical knowledge. So the encouragement now becomes that whether it is the government's fault or it's a general problem, students should also make intentional efforts to begin to gain experiences from the areas that they want to specialize, even if it's not directly related to the course of study they have.
Let's look at entrepreneurship skills. How well do tertiary institutions really ready students ahead of that? Do they really equip you with skills that would help you get money on the side, apart from the entrepreneurship course that we do, and it's just like a gathering of plenty people, and most people are not even participating, they just pay money and pass the course?
Well, like we said in the last interview, where I highlighted that there is indeed something called entrepreneurship course. The course is called CDR, and it may be in many other universities besides UNN. I don't think the university system, in terms of the curriculum, prepares students well enough for the entrepreneurship space, because it doesn't teach them problem identification, problem solving. It doesn't build their mind. The course of study, the courses of study available, yes, does not build these people and their minds to actually solve problems. What I feel, right, so, and this is a place that a lot of people don't agree with me on, I feel that the university system and the space called university actually prepares students for entrepreneurship, because it exposes a lot of people to different kinds of people. And sometimes when they are living in the hostel, they are exposed to different problems. So if I notice that all my classmates, everybody on my wing goes to school with a white shirt, the prompting in my mind, if I'm a hustler, is to start selling white shirts, or at least to start washing white set and dry cleaning them, right? And that's entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is being able to identify a problem
And profit
creating
solution.
a sustainable solution that can earn you a living, right? That's what entrepreneurship is. But we can't leverage on that. So I think the university system, tertiary educational system, should make conscious efforts to attach it. And let me tell you, CEDR is not even compulsory for everybody, in the university, right? And then we think entrepreneurship is important for everybody to take on. What I feel is that if there are people who want to really do entrepreneurship or be exposed to what entrepreneurship is, then they should be given the opportunity to have real-time tutors, not lecturers. I mean, people who have become entrepreneurs. These guys who do marketing class, business management class online, and people pay hundreds of thousands to actually join their courses and learn how to manage the businesses that they have. Bringing those people in to also give the same knowledge to university students who have businesses. I know a ton of, in fact, 60% by analysis in UNEC. There was a time I made this analysis, and I found out that 60% of students in UNEC, which is a whooping about 10,000 students, have businesses that they run. Small scale, medium scale, large scale businesses that they are running. And most of it started in the university. And so imagine if the university was able to be part of that progress by actually creating a system where they can teach students entrepreneurship practically. I'm not saying textbook. I'm saying practically. Yes, I'm saying the person who has an established business is coming to say, this is how I got to where I am. These are practical steps following the market as at today. This is what you can do to get to where I am, right? So it's a lot of that. Everything is not also going to be tertiary education. I mean, in terms of making it a strict pattern, a lot of it could also be collaboration, collaborating with these companies, bringing them in. It may not be a permanent part of the curriculum, but I feel like it doesn't hurt if there are people who have graduated from a university and are doing well, and they are brought back to partner and dish these skills.
Let's look at time as another factor, because when I was in school, I had a problem with time, maybe because of the school I attended. You don't have time to do so many things. I was interested in doing so many things, but I didn't have time because I can't, share my schedule at the same time. Now, do institutions do they make it possible to pair going to school, doing a business, or doing a job? I mean, if you look at the Western world, they have time for everything. Students have good paying jobs that helps them pay off their fees and so many things. The time factor in Nigeria, is it really is it a favorable one for students currently?
Again, I'm probably going to be the wrong person to ask, because if people who know me are watching this today, they're going to tell you that no, you can't ask Divine.
I mean, it's a you thing. Let's not forget that. I'm just saying, you're looking at the average.
So on the average, no, I don't think it's favorable, because most of the productive time in a day is hours between 8 and 2 p.m. or 4 p.m. And classically, this is the time for classes, lectures, and these lectures come with strict attendance, attendance that carry mark. It's not like, okay, they just want you to take attendance so that they will know if you are coming to school. No, sometimes they'll tell you if you don't have 75% attendance,
you can't write the exam.
Some people even go ahead to say that your attendance is your CA. Yes, and so when that happens to maybe your senior set, the set directly above you, even if someone was saying they were going to sponsor your business, you wouldn't want to start one. So there is that on the average. But then why not add add this extra push to say that it's still not every time in the day. It's not also every day that there are classes 8 to 4, right? So I'm just saying, outside we've established that if the times can be made more favorable. I mean, I think abroad even there are students who are working are treated a certain way, and they have the school hours. If they have to work, if they have a shift that is in the day, their day lectures will now happen in the evening. Those kind of things happen. They are flexible enough with time out there, but in this particular space, it's rigid. And the lecturer can say it's by 10 to 12 and working by 12 and keep the people from that 10 to 12. Because if they leave, what if he comes in and closes the door and say, if I enter, nobody will enter after I've entered, and threatens everybody. So, but then I still feel like a person who people should also not still limit themselves. There is still room to, use your weekends well, but then there are departments who still fix classes in the weekend.
In the weekends, yes.
I had a department. I'm not hearing a department. My department, at some point, we had lectures on Sunday. On Sunday afternoon, yes, a lecturer said, if you people don't come, this thing, I won't teach, and it's going to come out in your exam.
I've had night classes before.
So that one self-day. But, but then anytime, any free time a student lays their hand on, this is the most productive time of our life. That whole idea of leisure, no, this is my time for break, to press my phone, to gist with friends. I don't think it's really, you're going to enjoy all of that later.
The same lecturers will tell you that after school, you can do whatever you want to do. Let's look at infrastructure, the infrastructural challenges in tertiary institutions. How well is it? How accommodating is it? How convenient is it?
This is also part of the things that are affecting our curriculum, the infrastructure, lack of infrastructure. A person who is studying molecular biology and genetics or molecular biotechnology is meant to be exposed to a standard lab that can at least perform a PCR, polymerase chain reaction, for the basics. But this person is going to probably do this course for 4 years and never see a PCR happen. And what you're studying is molecular biology. What you're studying is what is happening in the body at the cell level, what eyes can't see. But you're going to study all of that with pen and paper. It's crazy.
And pass exams.
And pass the exam. And you will pass the exam.
You have to pass it.
Why not? You go pass. Right? So the infrastructure is a problem. We're not even talking about hostels now. We're talking about
not
we're talking
hostels.
About infrastructure that aids learning, that makes learning practical.
And let's not forget the fact that they keep increasing fees
and not developing infrastructure. As a matter of fact, some universities still get these fundings from TED Fund, and all these other platforms that fund, tertiary educations. And funny enough, why they get these fundings is because they write budgets relating to the infrastructure that they want to build, and we never see it, come alive. Whether the funding came or didn't come, I wouldn't know. But the truth is that we can do better. I think currently it's only medical students, like medicine and surgery,
that they put so much energy
into, that can boast that what they study, there is a period of time where they now have to go and gain clinical experience. But many other courses, and then law students sometimes, who go for internships at their own will, not because someone said they should or there is a time made for it.
So it's not in the curriculum?
No, it's not. Internships are not really in the curriculum, except I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. I'm part of, my brother studied law, my father studied law. So I know, this is something they do during their break. They go for internships, but they have what is called the University Student Bar Association, where they kind of practice. But that's by the way. But when you have courses like computer science, and a student who does not have money to buy a computer will not use computer to study computer science. And they will be learning coding. Right? So there's a lot of these infrastructural problems. Tertiary institutions should have fully equipped labs, computer labs, where the most recent generation computers exist that can perform everything. They should have labs that can perform all tests so that they can compete toe-to-toe with their counterparts out there. Not when they go out there and see a certain machine, they are just shocked. It looks like magic to them because they've never seen it here, right? So, but when we've not even dealt with hostels and classrooms that are
how are we going to deal with other infrastructure?
It's far-fetched, but God will help us in Jesus'
honestly
name.
Amen. Looking at the education system, do you think that it's more focused on dishing out certificates than preparing you for the markets ahead?
Yes, I think so. And something that can evidence my thoughts, or make it, to become a fact even, is the admissions. Right? So you see a school that can manage 200 students in a department, but they admit 600. So you're wondering, what your question now is, first, you can't even manage 600 people. You don't have the classroom facility available for that. You don't have a quota. You can't graduate that number. So what they will deal with throughout their university years
they'll fizzle some of them
filtering.
Out. Yes.
If you fail 2 courses, if you fail one course, if you do this one, so they'll just keep creating things so that by the time people get to final year, they have their number.
200.
The number. And if you get to final year and they don't have it, they will have first graduation list, second graduation list. And so when you see that the aim is to take in students, not really to take in students that you can train, then the result is that the the end is to give certificates and not to have people who have been competently trained. Because naturally, I've forgotten the lecturer to student count by normal standard, by the Ministry of Educational standard, but a lot of it is being violated in many universities. A lecturer stands in front, can only communicate with about
most
10
of them
to 20
have to
students.
use the microphone or something.
Even with the microphone, they can communicate with only probably 10 to 20 students in the class. The rest are packed there, sweating, waiting to just sign their attendance and leave. And a lecturer does not stop to say, I can't teach this class if I can't really communicate with everybody. His own is to just come, deliver that lecture, and walk away. So when you see this trend, you find out that you can hardly say there's an emphasis or there's attention being paid to the quality of graduates we have. But you could obviously see that there's a lot of attention on dishing out. Okay, we produced 20,000 students, 5,000 were first class. These are their certifications. They came out from this university. But what is the quality of what these people have become, over time? So I agree that there is a lot of emphasis on just bring all of them in. Come as you are, guys. We have room for you.
And bring your money as well.
Of course, why are you coming as you are? Coming as you are means come with your money. That's as you are. As you are is with your money.
With your money.
If you don't have money, you are not as you are. So come as you are. We have room for you. Go when you are ready. If you pass all our traps, all our tests,
exactly,
you can go. So it's crazy, and God will help us.
Comparing polytechnics, which I believe they are more into the practical aspects in their curriculum, and the universities. And let's not forget that we pay more attention to university graduates than polytechnics. And these people seem to have the practical knowledge of what we want. Just like when you gave the example of not employing a first-class student because they lack the skill, and employing someone lower because they have the skill that you need. How would you compare the universities and polytechnics now and the attention that they are getting?
That's why it's always a culture shock when university people who probably have prided in being in university, probably even a portrait was made, maybe they're the first person to go to university in their village, and then an award is even given to them, and then they come out and nobody's looking their side. And you see all these tweets online. First class graduate, see what I do. First class graduate, this is what I'm doing. The reason why there's even something as when you hear first class graduate, it means the person graduated from university. Now, the polytechnics don't have people applying. So polytechnic is like the last option for even the student.
Yes.
So now there is something called the stakeholder effect. Stakeholder effect is the fact that if more people pay attention to the left becomes more valuable than the right. Even if there is more value on the right, what people pay attention to is what becomes more valuable. So a lot of people are plunging. If by next academic session, 10,000 students were indicating interest to enroll in polytechnics in Enugu State, there will be more funding going to polytechnics. There will be more lecturers being sent to polytechnics. As a matter of fact, because more school fees will come, more lecturers will opt to teach in polytechnics. But what you have is that the remnants, the leftovers, is what is going there, because more of the attention is on, the university, tertiary education, the people who are going with BScs and all of that. Meanwhile, the polytechnics are the ones who have, because you even see polytechnics are even streamlined. A science polytechnic, an educational polytechnic. Polytechnics are even specific to what they want to train, and when you come in, that's what they are training you on. They don't have time to come and keep you in classroom. You're going to keep doing hands-on experience. You're going to keep going out there to learn. But how many people are going to send their kids to polytechnics? It's a new thought. This thought you just brought up is very unpopular, and I think if more conversations about it come up, maybe more attention will actually be paid to polytechnics.
Let's look at how much have we absorbed AI, greenfields, and so many other aspects of education into the Nigerian system.
Well, we've absorbed it through the back door because the students
use it to make it easy.
But the administration does not use it, right? The administration may use it individually, but there's not a lot of tech aiding the educational sector in Nigeria. But a lot of students are using it, to pass their exams. They are using a lot of those tech. I mean, sometimes abusing, it. But I don't think the Nigeria educational system has really absorbed these things well enough. And because we are talking about the future is tech, the future is global. the world is globalizing. There's hardly a skill that you can't really go to YouTube and learn. There's hardly anything like that. So whilst a university may lack maybe proper infrastructure to train their students in a certain space, if they absorb these AI gadgets well enough, these AI tools well enough, then they can actually do that work. But you know that the typical African is afraid of tech replacing them, right? So, but I feel like if we absorb them, it can even begin to lay off some of the burden on the shoulders of
the administrative block in universities. Do you think they see AI as a threat to them?
Many blocks, not just tertiary institution, a lot of spaces and sectors in the world today, especially in Africa, see tech as AI as a threat, because of how much it can do, how fast it can do that, how accurately it can do that. Personally, I feel like tech came to collaborate with people. I don't think a person, an existence can replace its creator. It was us that made AI. It's someone that is programming AI, right? So it's just to position yourself on the right side of AI. If you are on the consumer space, you're not going to be benefiting from the existence of AI only to the point that you are a consumer. If you're a producer, meaning that you're doing something AI can do, and you're not sharpening your skill, you're going to become outdated because AI continues to update every day.
Moment.
In fact, every second that there is a new info. If you ask AI who is the tallest man now, and you ask him by night, and someone else has taken that, he's going to say, but if there's a textbook about the tallest men in the world, he's not going to show it. And if there's a lecturer who is teaching about tallest men, he's not going to know. So I feel like the reason why AI should push the administration of various institutions, not just education, to sharpen their knowledge, to build their skill, because a person builds AI. AI can't replace humans. The threat is because we don't think we can do as much as AI is doing. But AI is just meant to support and collaborate with man. I don't think it's going to replace
Let's
us.
be a bit more practical. How often is this curriculum being reviewed?
The question now is, how often should it be reviewed? Now, by the Ministry of Education, as at the last time I checked, it's meant the educational curriculums are meant to be reviewed on 2 levels. First is every year. Second is every time the need arises.
Okay.
Yes, so there's meant to be a routine review.
So when was the last time it was reviewed?
I wouldn't. It won't. Not in the 20,000s. Not in the 2000s. Not in the 2000s. The last time it was reviewed was when we changed from the educational system we were using before, where there was standard 1 to standard 12, and then we broke down to the 112 educational type of system or curriculum. So, but since then we've not had any major educational reviews. Just been universities saying, I think we should also start doing this course this other university is doing. There's not been really major impact on the curriculum in terms of review, and so that means we are falling short of the expectation, and even though the need has arose many times in the past 20 years, the need has arose. The introduction of CBT exams is meant to cause a review, at least to make sure that students have a basic knowledge of use of computer, since they're going to use it to write exams. Yet there's no place where it is said that a student needs to have basic knowledge. A lot of students go into exam hall and their computer is hanging,
clueless.
Yes, and when it starts hanging, they don't know what to do. They start looking for the ICT staff, who are just for managing a room with 1,000 exam students, and so you can't be here and be here. So if a student does not have basic knowledge of that, why are we using CBT? Why are we having CBT, computer-based test, when people don't have computer knowledge, right? So this is a review that should have happened years ago when CBT exams were introduced. Now you're talking about tech, you're talking about entrepreneurship, you're talking about business, you're talking about soft skills like content creation and all of these things that are really fetching funds and livelihood for people outside the university. All these things should have caused a review or elicited a curriculum review by now, but we are yet to see it. And this is also a call to action to whom it may concern, for the actors to actually act on this, so that these reviews be done. It's very, very necessary.
So what are the necessary reforms you think should be taken into actions in order to, rebrand the tertiary education curriculum to be more practicable, practicable in a way that it can absorb everybody as well and equally get you prepared for the labor market ahead?
So the reforms that I think can be taken, let's start from the curriculum reforms. I feel like more relevant courses should be added to the courses.
Don't we have enough courses already?
That's what I'm saying. When the more relevant ones are added, the irrelevant ones should be removed. We have a lot. That's what you're trying to say. We have a lot of them, but we don't have enough. We don't have enough because even though everybody is in every department in the university, not all the departments are going to be relevant to them outside the university. So there is that aspect of introducing these particular courses, tech education, soft skills. Like, I don't know, there are a lot of them that are being studied out there. We could take a cue from the people out there. So there is that updating ahead. That's what I want to say. Updating the course list that we have. That's one. Now, we talked about flexibility, making the curriculum flexible enough that if a person wants to take on this, but also wants to take on something else, we run a very rigid curriculum in Nigeria. There is a number of unit loads you must meet. We run a 5.0 GPA standard. All these things are rigid and they don't encourage creativity. They don't encourage innovation. They don't encourage thinking outside the box. Yet we keep telling the youths and the students to think outside the box. But we are built to be in the box. As a matter of fact, there's a penalty for thinking outside the box. So there should be that flexibility. And then, of course, we should also have some level of check, a way to assess that a person has really learned something. This is also a reform that I think the white people have better than us. Examinations don't check the amount of knowledge you have gained about something. It checks how much you can remember. So the person who can cram the most is going to probably scale through. Even though that there are brilliant people who know the course, who can also scale through. But on the bulk of it, many students, if you ask them what they just wrote in their exam, they've forgotten it because they read so that they can pass. So there should be ways, and this is also practice, there should be practicable ways to access that students who you want to issue a certificate can actually defend that certificate so that they don't get embarrassed with your school certificate outside in that company. That's on the curriculum reform. And then the other one is the issue you raised about infrastructure. There should also be reforms with the infrastructural availability of these practicable means for the students to also have access, to what is happening across the world and be able to compete, in real time. So, I mean, there are other reforms, but generally or basically, these are some of those things that I feel like they can act on.
This is a word to the administrative parts of the universities. What of the governments? How can they come in to help this thing to be actualized?
Well, that's why we have a Ministry of Education. I think it's a ministry that is not paid attention to a lot.
The Ministry of Education?
Yes, the Ministry of Education should be very, very popular, but it's not. Because the bulk of, let's say we have 60,000 youths, 30,000 or 40,000 of them are students. And the youths are the most viable population of every country. If the majority of that population are students, it means that the ministry that manages those people should become very, very popular. So I think that state ministries of education, that is commissioners of education across various states in the country, should come alive. Minister of Education or ministers of education should also come alive so that they can collaboratively, because even everything we're saying to the administration of universities, the only administration of universities that can even work independently are private universities. And how many people attend private universities? So when we even talk about administration, the people, and many private universities don't have a lot of these problems you are spotting. Yes, most of the private universities are doing just fine, right? So what we're even addressing is the ones that the government has to play a part in. It needs to come alive. There's a lot of attention paid on crude oil, source of income, the economy of the country. The ivory tower is falling. The ivory tower is falling. The ivory tower is the educational sector, is falling. There's not attention paid to it. If someone wanted to do a campaign to become a leader in Nigeria, the person wouldn't be paying attention to education. The only attention that will be paid to the educational sector is to mobilize students to come out and do campaigns.
For campaigns, I was going to say this.
So if the person wanted, the person will probably build a road, build something, build one structure like that. So there's more attention paid to that aspect. I feel like there should be attention paid to the educational sector so that our youth will stop saying school na scam, so that they can start, really gaining from the school fees that they pay and the education that we get, in the country.
Okay, we talked about curriculum review. What strategies do you think should be implemented in order to successfully have a continuous curriculum review, not just something that they'll do now and abandon for the next 10 to 20 years to come?
It's going to be, it has to be by establishing grassroots systems. Just like every other sustainable, development, it has to be grassroots. If you call commissioners of education together to sit down and do a review, I'm sorry, but they don't have enough information to do a review. If you even add VCs, vice chancellors, to that meeting or to that conference, they still don't have enough information. If you now bring in lecturers and here, you are beginning to add information. But you see, when I say grassroots, the stakeholders who are the students should be absorbed into the structures that actually have these conversations. Because if they are now absorbed, they can begin to say, these are the problems that we are facing. It's not only vice chancellors that should be asked, what should we do in your university? Students should also be asked, what should we do? What should we do differently? They are the main stakeholders. Imagine that a group of people need air to breathe, and then you come with truckloads of food. So you've brought something, but it's something that is not relevant. They will take the food. It may waste, it may not. But the need is oxygen, and you brought food. That's what is happening. If we say this now, and maybe gets to the right ears and a miracle happens, what you will see now is a knee-jerk reflex where the Minister of Education will call a meeting with a lot of people. They're going to sit down and start doling out money. You think everything is not money.
It's not money.
Everything, processes shouldn't even start with money. Money should be the end of every action, of policies. What should start it is conversations, proper analysis, proper reviews done on individual level, grassroots. These people, okay, what do you think we should co-opt? What should we add? In the long run, what have we seen students getting more involved with that we think is positive enough to be co-opted into this? How will it affect? And you talked about it being able to continue.
Yes,
this
not
is
just
how
a
it
one-time
continues.
thing.
This is how it continues, because these people who have the most reliable information, as this group of students pass, the next group of students who are the new generation may have new needs. If you depend on the students, they are going to give you their needs. Okay, that they set before us, this is what they wanted, but for us, this is what we think the
It's
review
best
should
for
be.
us.
So if you rely on a VC is going to stay 5 years, if he has luck and he gets to 10 years, a commissioner for education maybe 4 years, depending on the state structure. A minister for education maybe 8 years. But the needs change almost yearly. So it is people who experience the problems on a yearly basis that can give you information about reliable reforms that can be made yearly. So if it's going to continue, it's going to be sustainable, it should start from the grassroots and go up, not from up to the grassroots.
Thank you so much, Honorable Divine Ekweremadu, for your input on the topic that we just finished discussing, tertiary education curriculum and practicability in Nigeria society. Honorable Divine Ekweremadu is a special advisor, Student Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Enugu State. Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you very much.
As always, we'll have this conversation in a different angle another day.
Always ready to show up and say my bid.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
But
you.
we'll go into our next line of discussion for tonight. Stay with us.